Good evening, everyone. I'm going to. They're the best. All right. Good evening, everyone. We call this meeting of the Board of Education to order an open session. We're going to have our last presentation from a possible search firm. Thank you all so much for joining us. Like Herding, it's gonna talk through kind of where we're at in the process as of today and what board members will engage in over the weekend in order to make a decision on Monday.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be here with you again. Our meeting tonight continues the work of last evening where we interviewed two search firms who will assist the district in helping to find the next superintendent for the Madison Metropolitan School District. We're excited about moving this work forward for our children, our families, and our staff. A reminder for board members, if you have follow-up questions that you'd like to ask the vendors in time for our closed session on Monday, please be sure to get those to me along with your rubric. The next step for our board will be meeting in closed session on Monday to discuss the interviews, and that will be followed up with an open session to adults involved on the choice. So without any further information, yes, WP and Associates join us this afternoon.
Hi, thanks for having us. First thing I wanted to say is we were very impressed with the, oh, second. Can we get the presenter camera turned on?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Are we supposed to do something?
No.
I'll just ask you to turn on your video. So it'll
Yeah.
just pop up in the ears.
It's asked you to start your video. Okay. All right, here we go. Thanks. Well, I was saying thank you for the structure and focus you gave us. Most boards, when they ask for a presentation, they pretty much say, just bring your usual presentation. And we liked that this board said, no, we've got 4 things we really want to know about you guys. So we were able to structure a very individualized presentation for you, and we're eager to share it. We're the BWP and Associates team. My name is Dr. Joe Porto. I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves, and off we'll go. I am a 33-year career veteran in education. I was a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, an assistant superintendent, and then for the last 16 years of my career, I was a superintendent. I live and worked in the Chicago suburban area. So my schools were, my superintendency was up in the North Shore suburb of Chicago. After retiring, I was worked as a professor at both Loyola University and Northern Illinois University in DeKalb. I've also been an interim superintendent and a mentor, and also a consultant who specializes in facilitating strategic plans. It's an honor to be asked to present here, and I'm also very proud of my team. So Sheila, you can introduce yourself.
Okay, very good.
You have to move the computer, is that true?
Yeah, you could either just tilt it. Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right. Well, hello again, everyone. I'm Sheila Harrison Williams. I'm so happy and excited to be here this afternoon. And again, thank you for this opportunity to talk and share with you about BWP. I too am a retired superintendent after 18 years in south suburbs of Chicago. I'm currently the executive director for the Arizona School Boards Association. And on job number 2, I too flunked retirement. I am also the co-founder of the HWC Executive Leadership Institute, where we work with aspiring superintendents. I've been doing this work since 2004. We have about over 60, I would say, superintendents that have come through our program that are now currently working somewhere in this country. I mentor and coach sitting superintendents all over the country, large districts, small districts, and in between. And I'm continuing to do that work. That's the passion of mine, is the superintendency. So I'm here today to help to hopefully convince you that we are the right group to help you locate your next superintendent.
Could we go to the next slide? By the way, we have
There we
a
go.
couple of key points that we were making here.
Good evening. My name is Todd Bugnacki and I'm an associate with BWP. Recent retired superintendent. I've spent 35 years of my career in southeastern Wisconsin. Started off in Milwaukee Public Schools and retired from Cedarbrook School District as a superintendent. And so I still feel like I'm very much still in the superintendency, still dreaming a lot about it, having a lot of contacts with a lot of superintendents. Still having a lot of contact with teachers and administrators, and I'm very excited to be here. In my time now, I'm a Rotarian, I'm on a board of the Nature Center, and I do some work for a nonprofit as well, food pantry in Ozaukee County. And I'm very excited to be here, and thanks for this opportunity.
And Sheila and I are going to split the 4 questions that we'll take you through, so we don't have to be moving this thing around all the
Yes,
time.
all right. Okay, so the first,
Next
next
slide.
slide, please. I'm sorry about that. And so we're going to talk about race and equity. I believe that was the first question. And it's 3 ways that we walk it like we talk. Put it like that. And so we're going to talk about 3 different areas: the leadership of the firm, recent experience in diverse communities, and BWP's nationwide network. All right.
Next.
Next slide, please. Our firm is represented by 9 directors or partners. And it's all the same. We use that word interchangeable. 3 of them are women. I'm one of them. There are 2 African-American women, 1 African-American man. 45% of BWP's partners and associates are women and or minorities. Our managing director, Dr. Deborah Hill, is the other African-American woman that serves as a director of BWP. We have a significant network of associates that include African-American, Hispanic, Latino, I would even venture to say in Asian. We have associate. So we have other minorities as well that works with us.
Next slide.
Next slide, please. I need to write that. Slide, please. Our recent searches include Green Bay, Wisconsin, which our team, the 3 of us, we just completed that search.
Literally this week
Yeah.
on Monday.
We just completed it. And during that search, we actually slated 7 people. We had a great selection of candidates to work with. 4 of them were African Americans, 1 Hispanic, 5 outside of the state of Wisconsin, and 1 woman. And the person that was chosen was Dr. Claude Tiller, African American man. The other is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We slated 6 people, 3 African Americans, 1 Hispanic, 5 of them were outside of Pennsylvania. Dr. Wayne Walters was selected. We did Chicago, Illinois. 4 people were slated. 2 of them were African American, 1 Hispanic, and 3 of those folks were outside of Illinois. Dr. Pedro Martinez was selected, and he was out of Texas. Madison, Wisconsin, this beautiful school district right here. We did 6-person slate, and 5 of them were African American, 2 women, and Dr. Carlton Jenkins was selected. Next slide, please. We have a diverse network of associates across the country representing national demographics, active representation at the National Alliance of Black School Educators. I am a former treasurer for that organization from 2012 to 2016, I believe. I was the treasurer, and also the Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, as well as the American Association of School Administrators. We're very active in all of those organizations. BWP, all of our searches are shared with all of our directives across the country and associates across the country. And we're asking them for input and recommendations once they see what we have to offer. Next slide, please. The next section is on communication and community engagement. The first one, community.
Next slide.
Next slide, please. Communication and community engagement is the initial phase. The leadership profile is what we're calling it. It's 3 components. In our initial phase, we will interview you, the school board members. We will conduct focus groups with school community leaders, staff, and students. And we will do any sort of hybrid option that you would like. We have on-site virtual. We can go to the schools. We can go into the neighborhoods at community centers. We can use interpreters, liaisons, open forums, invitations. You decide on what those focus groups would look like. Then also we will provide and make available an open survey. And that survey is for residents and staff and students. And we can actually have that survey written in any language you'd like, any language. And I know you have a high population of, I shouldn't say high population, but a lot of different languages spoken in your school district. So we can actually have that transformed into any one that you'd like. And then the input from the interviews, the focus groups, and the surveys, we take that information and we develop the leadership profile from that. This is used throughout all of the stages of the selection process moving forward. Then next, we will work with school boards the school board members to determine the level of community involvement that you desire for your finalists as they are determined. You have 2 options. We can do a day in the district, which involves meeting with staff and constituent groups in various settings throughout the day. Then we can also, another option would be to interview groups. These interview groups would actually be the people that you would select, that you would actually allow them to interview the candidates after you've gotten them down to maybe 2 or 3. So you have those options, and they could be anyone from teachers, staff, parents, community members, administrators, or whomever that can give you some feedback. And then to ensure transparency in action. Did I say next slide, please?
She's got it.
Okay, she got it.
He's into your rhythm.
All right. And then to ensure transparency in action and communication, we will determine a school board liaison from your group who will work with the BWP team member to coordinate all communications throughout the process. We will also provide regular school board updates, summaries as you like. You know, we will every week, every month, however you like them, just to give you information that you can share back out with your constituents. And then, of course, we will follow, I skipped one, I'm sorry. We will provide updates. We would present you at the school board meetings, your leadership profile. We would do that in open session where everyone gets an opportunity to hear back all of the information that they are sharing with us throughout the process. And then finally, we will follow all the Wisconsin state guidelines regarding candidate information and disclosure, because we do know that there's some legalese that we have to stay, in front of. I'm going to turn it back over to Joe. Thanks. Thank you.
The third question that you gave us to focus on was one we don't normally get, and it's a good one. How will you assure that there's a good working relationship between the board and the team? That's just key to the success of any big decisions. So we're going to attack that one 3 ways. We're going to start off with an initial planning meeting. Then we'll be doing one-to-one interviews with all of you. And then we're going to assure a strong communication flow. The combination of those 3 things will build the kind of relationship you're looking for. This initial planning meeting, we will schedule it if we are fortunate enough to be the firm that you choose. We will schedule that with you just as soon as there's a date that the board can make it. We think it's just really important. We come with a big checklist to that meeting, and we will make decisions together from the very first day. So we will talk about the pace, we will talk about the schedule, we will talk about exactly when the community engagement will be. We'll ask you, how deep do you want us to go with the community engagement? We'll ask for your expertise in putting that together. We'll make sure that we talk about how we're going to communicate, and just every decision you could think of, we nailed down that first meeting. Why are we talking about that in the question about board and firm relationship, that's really an important meeting where we start more than this one's able to be, where we really start getting to know you and you getting to know us. And we don't just pay lip service to the fact that we're flexible. And while we have a process, we're also open to making it be uniquely Madison. We start doing that with you. Next slide. As part of the three-prong attack that Sheila talked to you about in developing the leadership program, the next thing we do is schedule a meeting with each of you. And it will be one-to-one or on the phone, most comfortable. They usually take about 45 minutes or so. And we're just going to talk to you. We're going to ask you the same three questions that we'll be asking all of the people in the focus groups. And also the same three questions that highlight the survey. What are the most important strengths that you're proud of in Madison and that you want to see continue under new leadership? What are some opportunities for growth that you think await the new superintendent? And then the third thing we're going to ask you is what leadership characteristics do you think are a good match for this community and this board? I think you all realize that superintendents can be successful in one setting, but maybe it's not the right match somewhere else. So we're going to have those conversations. And then next slide. And I won't repeat this because Sheila did a nice job, but we'll just make sure that there's a good communication flow. I'm the team leader, so I will be the BWP liaison. You'll designate who you want to be the board liaison. That'll be the main information flow, but we do a really good job of making sure that the whole board knows what's going on with really regular updates, and we'll come to any meeting anytime for you. And then finally, we'll wrap up our part of this before we get into your questions. One more. There we go. That one, yeah. It's okay. You asked about how will we help the board identify and recruit the very best candidates. And if we could be so bold, it is a specialty of the three of us. We were very proud of the slate we put together. We three worked on Green Bay, and we gave them the most awesome slate, and we're just really good at it. I was involved in Pittsburgh, and we felt the same way. So I want to talk about three things to wrap this up. The importance of the leadership profile that Sheila introduced, how we're going to train you on interviewing and candidate assessment, and how we'll be proactive in our recruiting. Next slide. The importance of the leadership profile, we cannot stress enough. When we get the synthesis of the survey, the board interviews, and all the focus group information, we put it together in what's going to turn out to be probably 8 to 10 bullet points. These are the characteristics of the next superintendent in Madison Metropolitan Public Schools. And they'll be very specific. They won't just be a canned set of adjectives, that you see. They'll be real specific things based on what we learn when we go in there. So think about the importance of this. We use it when we do the advertising. We use that profile when we develop questions to bring in and screen the candidates. When we help you plan your questions for the first round and the second round, we pull out the leadership profile. And we use the profile, sorry about Education E's word, but we help you develop rubrics that you can then use to be able to assess the candidates. We don't want you to get to the end and look around and say, which one did you like? We want you to go back and say which one best matches up with leadership. So that document and that process is crucial. Next slide. We have two more. There'll be a meeting After we've done our screening, we want to present to you our recommendations for your slate. There's no magic number, so we usually like to say 4 to 7. We had 7 in Green Bay. I think only had 5 and 5 or 6 in Pittsburgh. It all depends on who we think best matches up to your profile. We'll have a meeting where the 3 of us will come in and we'll provide information so you can get to know the candidates we are presenting. But the second half of that same meeting shifts into something extremely important. We're going to work with you, not assuming that you've all done this before. And we will bring some questions for you to take a look at. We'll help you divide the questions so they match up with the leadership profile. We'll give you a little legal guidance about the kind of questions you have to stay away from. And we'll talk to you about using the rubrics to make your decisions and anything else that you could possibly need going in, even some tips on how to reach consensus and how to get by if you are at a point where you're maybe not agreeing. So we will give you all the tools you need at that meeting so that you can begin the interviews that you take over in the second half. And then we want to wrap this up with the final point. Boy, if there's nothing else you remember from our presentation, I hope maybe this is it. We don't just put up an announcement on our website and in the Wisconsin and keep our fingers crossed and hope the right people will apply. We don't do, I like to call it the field of dreams approach. If you build it, we will come. We don't want to take that chance. We are active, proactive, aggressive recruiters. Once we have that profile in our hands and we know what we're looking for, we put our network to work. And we start talking to people who didn't even know Madison had an opening. And the most recent experience I can share with you is your neighbors in Green Bay. In that search of 7 that we had given them on their slate, 5 of them were people that wouldn't even have known about the search without us approaching them. And we found the best people by matching up our contacts around the country with your leadership program. We're really good at it if you give us a chance. I think that answers the 4 questions you put to us. But, and colleagues, did I leave anything else you want to accentuate before we let the board have at it?
All right. The 6 of us are going to ask questions. We'll start with Board Member Vandermeulen to make sure we have enough time to get to all of the questions and you have time to ask us questions. I would ask that 1 or 2 of you answer.
Sure.
Yeah, to everybody.
We'll shift the computer around, but
Yes.
only one of us will respond.
Absolutely. Please describe your approach to working with the Board of Education, and you've done this some, but I want you to expand on it. Please describe your approach to working with the Board of Education to update the community throughout the search on progress made in identifying our next superintendent.
Okay, I think we touched upon it, but let me just accentuate a point or two. The first thing we're going to ask you during that first initial meeting is, how do you want to do communication? You know what works best in your community, whether it's email blasts or on your Facebook and Twitter, whatever. So we're going to ask you exactly what is the best way to communicate our progress, and how often do you think people are going to expect updates? And in some districts, they turn us over to their either communication director or their HR person, and we work with them. Other times it's a board liaison that gives us that, but we will really individualize that to meet your needs. Sheila, anything?
No, I think that's right. And then we can also provide that person, that's the liaison person, with written report where we are, how many applications you've received thus far, where we are in the process, so.
There's peaks and valleys there's times where we might have to communicate a couple times a week. And then there might be a stretch, usually when the applications are coming in, that we don't really have much to report. So we will always keep the board informed, and then we will use your guidance to how often and how best to inform the community.
Thank you. Oh, I had asked one follow-up. Do you provide sign language interpretation?
We do not provide that, no.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm on the screen right now, and I'm gonna be asking you the next question.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. How will you identify individuals who are excellent candidates for MMSD that will not be found through self-identification or other traditional hiring processes?
Okay, we do have that strong network of folks all across the country. Once, and Joe said it earlier, is once we get that profile, we start looking for them. The candidates that we're going to bring to you, that your next superintendent probably isn't even looking for a job right now. So we're going to be trying to match them up with someone that's already successful wherever they are. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring them on board, convince them that this is the place for them. Once we know who we're looking for, we're going to actively recruit. We're going to actively go out there and look for these individuals. And we have people all over the country. It's not like he said, we're not going to just post it and hope someone will apply for the job. No, we're going to look for them. We're going to look for the best and the brightest candidates this country has to offer that fits Madison School District.
Well said. And I just think she did a great job. I don't know if there's anything more to add other than I guess I wanted you to know that we don't just have like a pool of
No.
15 candidates that are the BWP candidates that we pull out every search. We don't do that at all. Every search is new, every search is fresh, and people that we thought might be great for Green Bay might not be great for Madison and vice versa. So we start from scratch each time.
Thank you. Our next question is, how do you translate our candidate profile into a job description?
I'm gonna give that one to Todd because he hasn't had a chance to talk much.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I can see looking at the leadership profile, and you want to see measurable outcomes from that profile, and using that as a guide to develop a job description is that crosswalk is not that difficult, quite honestly. When that leadership profile comes out, you will see and know the skills, the attributes, what you want in your Madison superintendent, and to take that and move that into the next step of creating a job description. That is not difficult work at all. It will be time consuming, but it's the right work, because then you know the person you hire has well-defined expectations and boundaries and what the job needs to be done. Thank you.
Nothing against job descriptions. I think they're important and they serve a role. But what might be even more important is taking the leadership profile and turning it into your new superintendent's first evaluation goals.
Yes.
Many of our clients have done that. It just leads beautifully from one to the next. And if that becomes your evaluation assessment, then that's going to be your job description as well.
Thank you.
I have the next question for you. Briefly describe the pros and cons of two hiring timeline options. Having the superintendent in place before the start of the 2023-24 school year versus the process taking more time and hiring at another point during the upcoming school year.
I have some thoughts. I can get it started.
Yeah, get it started.
Okay. First of all, whichever way you want to do it, we can make it work. So I don't want to give an answer that makes you think that, well, we can't choose them because he prefers the other. We could make either work. But you asked it, which one, in our opinion, pros and cons. I believe the solution that has the most pros would be to put in an interim and do a search for your person to start the following school year. The pros of that would be great long lead time, which would give us plenty of opportunity to do a very deep, rich community engagement process, to really utilize our network candidates, and to just really take our time and do it right. The cons would be that sometimes people view a year with an interim as kind of a wasted year. Don't like that. I've been an interim and nothing I do is ever wasted, I hope. But that can be the impression, like, oh, that's just a year on hold. And some boards want to stay away from that. It's almost mid-April now. Here's the biggest problem with trying to have somebody in place in July. You're going to run into losing good candidates because they don't ethically want to leave their current job with such little notice. Your really good people also have high levels of integrity, and Madison might be their dream job, but I know quite a few that would say, I couldn't touch it. I couldn't leave my district at this point. So I'm afraid that would really harm the candidate pool. The pro to it, though, would be that, sometimes a speedy process leads to good momentum, which can filter right into the next year and the new person gets off and running. But when I weigh the pros and cons, I would lean heavily toward the one I mentioned first. Sheila, I want you to.
I just want to just add a little bit to that, and that is, if we were here a month ago, I would be like, yeah, we could do this, early March, late February, because it's called the third round, is what it's called. It's called the third round. And right now, like you said, it could be done, but it would be difficult because anyone that's worth their salt, they have a job for next year. And I think that, I'm not sure what you're looking for yet in your next superintendent, but this is 52,000 students. This is a metropolitan. We need someone that is ready to come into a district like this. And that means they might be already a sitting superintendent somewhere. So would they be willing to leave? And again, their integrity kick in and probably like, I can't leave my district in a lurch at this point. Okay.
Todd,
I don't
it's
even
an
mention
important question.
Not
but-
three, but it's worth just emphasizing, post pandemic, things have changed quite a bit and you see a lot of movement in the market often. And we've seen right here in Wisconsin, one of the largest school districts have a new superintendent start mid-year last year. And so it's not impossible to do that type of thing. It's just, I think it's worth us having a conversation and make certain we know what we're after and just nailing down that timeline in a reasonable one at that, because you don't want to go through too fast and you're going to lose good candidates, but you can find good candidates, and Madison is a desirable district. It is a place people want to be.
The destination.
And so you will not, in my estimation, have a difficult time. We will not have a difficult time getting great candidates. And some of those good candidates are sitting superintendents and are planning to come back next year with a phone call and maybe a conversation with the board, a mid-year departure. And that's what we saw here in Wisconsin, one of the larger districts. That certainly is possible.
Finally, the one time I took on a search with that tight of a timeline, one of the things we found is we got quite a few candidates who, when we dug deeper, had been let go somewhere. You don't want that necessarily. You'd rather somebody who's sitting soup in good stead that wants to be here because it's a destination. Sorry, maybe we overdid.
No, not at all. I appreciate that. That's kind of what we were looking for is your expertise in that. And then just a quick follow-up. So basically, to clarify what you're saying is there is the option for the school year, an entire year But mid-year would be a third option
Yeah.
in between there.
It certainly, I'm gonna take this, sorry, it certainly can be a third option, and, you know, as we work with the board, you're gonna want to decide, are you looking for an experienced superintendent? Are you looking for someone who's in a larger district who wants to move up? You have an assistant super coming out of Chicago, for example, who knows they want to, you know, the superintendent knows that person wants to go on to a larger district, wants to be the leader in a district. There can be, that's a logical time, maybe mid-year. Superintendent says, yes, I understand you're looking. This is a grand opportunity. The Madison School District is open, so you can apply and start mid-year. So there's a lot of little factors that I think we just have to consider as we start working through this.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's a great question.
Hi, you all. I'm Maya Pearson. I'm on the screen. I'll be asking your next question. Thank you for being here with us today. Describe the support for the board to onboard the new superintendent and setting measurable expectations that can be evaluated.
Well, we are a full service team, so we'll stay with you every step of the way. And you know, from the very beginning, right through when you make your choice and right into the first contract, we can get as involved in getting that first contract done as you want us to be. Also, I'm sorry to say, I don't think we mentioned this yet, but one thing that makes us, we think, stand out is we also provide 1 full year of free mentoring to the new superintendent. Even if he or she is an experienced superintendent, he or she is not experienced in Madison. And all new people coming in could use the extra support. And so we as a team would provide 1 full year of mentoring to make sure, because let's be honest, it makes us look good as well as the district if the person is successful. So we've also been asked, right to your question, whether we could help develop the goals for the very first superintendent contract, and we're willing to do that as well. I've already mentioned my bias, and that is pull out the leadership profile, and that's the most perfect place to start. Now, that's not going to be good forever, because after the person's first year, he or she will learn the strengths you want to build from the concerns that come up, and you'll want to be much more, but it's an excellent place to start.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes the questions that we have. At this point, we are ready to entertain any questions that you might have for us.
I'd like to jump right in. Obviously, you haven't made the decision yet about the timeline. How do you plan to end up making that decision? Will it be something the board decides on its own, or once you hired the firm, will you do that together? What are your thoughts on that?
Paper, rock, scissors.
Well, I mean, I'll just speak from my perspective. I'd like to make that decision in partnership with the firm that we select. That's just where I'm coming from. I feel like the firm that we select has a better idea of knowing how responsive the candidate pool is going to be. And I would want to be fully informed of, like, what does it look like for us to have a high quality pool of candidates for fall start or later. So me personally, I don't know that I would feel equipped enough to make a decision about timeline without understanding that aspect.
I see Board Member Vandermeulen and Board Member Castro.
I think it needs to be a board decision. I'm a little different in that this is my 6th year on the board. I've gone through the last 3 superintendent searches in this district for the last 2. And so having done that, I know what I like and what I don't, but that is what I like. I have 6 other people who have to make that decision, and I don't want to make it without them. I like your flexibility, but I think it is a board decision.
Board Member Castro.
Yeah, I think we're kind of in an adaptive position. There's probably a desire to evaluate a potential market for the summer. And make a decision based off that information.
I would say it depends on the confidence of the firm in terms of their ability to execute a search well. What I have said publicly is that the priority is finding the right fit and providing as much stability to the district in the process as possible. And so really making sure that our priority is what works best for our students, our staff.
Well said.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I kind of overheard you talking about making a decision on Monday. As selection of the search firm. Okay, so that's what I kind of heard that. Yeah, okay.
I think there's a public notice.
Oh, it is, I come in the door, I was like, okay, they gotta select somebody on Monday. Okay.
That's good, because no matter which way you go, as far as the timeline, the sooner you get the decision on the search firm, the better you'll.
It's true. You all have other questions for us?
Do you have a minute? Just to.
Yeah, do we have a couple minutes?
Just a quick follow-up. I remember watching a board meeting where there was some discussion about the current superintendent and his availability. As far as, and I don't know if that was something that had been discussed.
You mean for transition?
For transitioning and extending that timeline a little bit into the school year. Is that something the board has thought about? And
You know, the vast majority of conversations with respect to the superintendent and his transition at this point are confidential conversations, including conversations we've had around exploration around a variety of areas that impact that, even identifying our search firm. So you all are a key piece in us, charting what the next few months look like. Thank you for tuning into board meeting.
oh yeah,
We like that you're doing your homework.
and our little popcorn and.
I'll end with one last question. One thing you can't just glean, as I did my research from your website, is, I can see your financial projections and know that you passed an important referendum a couple of years back. One, when candidates ask us about a job, the first question they ask, you won't be surprised, right? How's the board? And I won't ask you to respond to that. But the second question they ask is, how are the finances? So could somebody share in a nutshell how we would respond to that if we end up getting this job?
I feel like that's the most pop quiz. Ask. Because, I'm like, oh, I think Ross would just, cringe if he heard me. Trying to concisely explain kind of the financial reality as dictated through the state in terms of Wisconsin. But
We got a little lesson in that in Green Bay.
What
You know about some history.
So what I'll say is differently than Green Bay is that Madison is an incredibly progressive community that has passed referendums enthusiastically over and over again to make sure that our district is able to remodel facilities, to keep up with inflation, to invest in our educators. I think when you look at Madison as a major metropolitan area, it is a resource-rich district, and that can't be denied in comparison to districts across the country. So we're about 25,000 students. On average, we spend a little under 19,000 per student. I think there's areas that we're going to need to address critically in our budget, particularly with respect to ESSER running out and some of the realities districts across the country are confronting right now. But I think your 85% of our budget comes from the immediate taxpayers, right? Like the people who own homes here. Right?
It's huge.
And that means that the way our immediate community feels about our district really matters to our ability to sustain our schools and also invest in our young people enthusiastically. And I think we're very lucky to live in a community that supports public education and educators and
Yes.
believes in the 3 schools and sites that are MMSD.
Hey, you passed the pop quiz and that'll be a very reassuring information when candidates speak.
I'm sure Russ will text me a great.
Thank you so much. Oh,
Other folks who want to speak to that.
It's a challenge, it's a challenging fiscal environment for public education in Wisconsin, and just nationally with record high inflation, things of that nature. And one big thing is that the board is interested in a referendum for the next, not this academic year, but the following academic year. So experience with that as well, so.
And the operational, that's near the end, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
30 million, is that year 4 of that? Phase 4, I think is what you call it.
Next year.
Okay.
thanks so much for your time and giving us this opportunity. We really enjoyed it.
Especially on a Friday night, when the temperature's 80
You get
degrees
8+
outside.
for coming back on Friday to help.
Yes,
We
thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thank you all for joining us this evening and thank you.
Pleasure, thank you.
And we'd love to know one way or another, one decision. So we don't mind.
Well, if you're tuning
We're
in-
hoping the answer is what we want, but if it's not, we still would love to hear.
Nice to meet you guys.
Can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, second, Maya.
Yeah.
Aye.
Good to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Motion carries.
Nikki.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Yeah.
That's okay.